Some state cats get their first taste of spring. Plus, Facebook stockholders are shedding their shares, causing a one-day loss of $5 billion. We'll show you why. But first, communicating with the outside. The story of cells inside of cells.
This is West Dakota Fox News at 9 with Molly Martinez and meteorologist Henry Blakes. Your first news of the night starts right now on West Dakota Fox News at 9.
Good evening, I'm Molly Martinez. For many of us, texting has become such a ubiquitous form of communication that we don't think much about it. But for inmates at the Burley-Morton Detention Center, texting is both a privilege and a window into the outside world. Daniela Hurtado shows us this unique prison program.
More than 500,000 text messages have been sent from inside these walls through these kinds of devices. The outside world is within the reach of their fingertips. These devices give inmates access to their families on the outside.
Children that have parents that are in our facility, they can stay in constant contact with them.
CAP says they currently have more than 150 devices with 80 in use. The inmates pay for the text through money given to them by family and friends.
They are a very good source of behavior modification, because if they don't follow the rules and they don't behave themselves, then we take the texter.
The staff says they monitor text messages to assure there is no criminal activity or inmate-on-inmate communication.
We have had some misuse situations where they will text somebody on the outside, and then that person will turn around and forward that message back in to somebody else that's incarcerated, and we do not allow inmates to communicate with each other in the facility. Devices
are taken away if staff find out they are being used inappropriately. Wi-Fi is cut off at 10:30 every night, and the devices are picked up for charging. Officers tell me that although text messages are only 9 cents, one woman spent more than $4,000 on both text messages and phone calls in 1 month. Reporting from the Burley-Morton Detention Center for West Dakota Fox News at 9, I'm Daniela Hurtado.
Time now, our first check on weather. Today looks a lot like winter, but it's actually
spring. Believe it or not, it is spring. Started at 11:15 Central Time this morning. More details on the rest of the forecast and the potential storm later on.
Thanks, Henry. We're learning of a fatal accident in Towner. Highway Patrol says a distracted driver hit 77-year-old Thomas Miller as he was walking down Main Street, killing him. That driver has been identified as 60-year-old William St. Clair. A Grand Forks man will spend the next 16 years in prison for selling meth. Prosecutors say 39-year-old Ryan Franklin was part of a drug ring responsible for the shooting death of Austin Foreman at the Flying J truck stop 2 years ago. They say Franklin was one of a group of people bringing several pounds of meth from the Twin Cities to the Red River Valley. A 44-year-old Harold Nunnally of Seattle was just sentenced to 15 months in prison. He's charged with bringing a woman to North Dakota to engage in prostitution. Prosecutors say Nunnally forced the woman to have sex in exchange for drugs, then stole all of the money that she made. In energy news, capturing natural gas to reduce flaring has been an ongoing issue for state oil producers. The Public Service Commission just approved a gas processing facility to help mitigate this problem, where a majority of the flaring takes place.
This particular plant will be processing gas that is gathered at the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation, all on tribal lands. 100% of this natural gas is coming from that gathered there.
The Bear Den Gas Processing Plant 2, located near Watford City, will process up to 120 million cubic feet per day. Next, Era Energy is wanting to upgrade its wind turbines in Montreal County. The technology is called SODAR, which measures the wind speed and scattering of sound waves. It's still in the planning stage while the company decides where these enhancements should go. Next, Era Energy is a big developer of renewable energy in the Minot area.
We have 9,000 turbines in production. We're the largest in solar. We have some nuclear facilities throughout the country, and we're in Canada and the United States.
Next, Era is still waiting on approval from Ward County Public Service Commission to build the towers. Well, today is the 45th annual National Agriculture Day. Agriculture is North Dakota's #1 industry, generating nearly $40 billion in economic activity for the state. National Agriculture Day encourages Americans to understand how food and fiber products are produced and what agriculture means to our economy.
Many times our farmers and ranchers and those involved in agriculture and providing goods and services to agriculture are largely unrecognized. So it's a great way to recognize their efforts and their contribution to our lives, to our families, and to our economy.
Goring adds that today is a good day to thank these hard workers for what they're doing. Students at Miller Elementary will be doubling up on classrooms tomorrow after a water main break caused some major flooding. Staff noticed the break around 7 a.m. yesterday. Crew members say most, if not all, of the furniture in the classrooms can be salvaged. Classroom supplies are stacked to the ceiling while the Aero service team deals with the estimated $40,000 to $50,000 worth of damage.
The water's back on and we've extracted the water, we've cut out some of the wet drywall, we have fans and dehumidifiers and other systems in place to dry out the structure and of course keeping the other kids in the building safe.
Representatives from Bismarck Public Schools say the students should be back in their classrooms by Friday or early next week. Meanwhile, in political news, a legislative committee was hard at work looking at changing the rules on citizen-initiated measures. It's how the Compassionate Care Act became law. What would these changes look like? Andrew Horn shows us.
The committee is looking at bill drafts and constitutional changes, including what happens with initiated measures going forward.
This does not obligate a committee to bring a measure forward.
Representative Scott Lauser of Minot spent more than an hour defending his bill draft that would change how initiated measures get on the ballot.
I think this grants additional power to the members of a sponsoring committee and the voters of North Dakota.
Right now, if someone wants to place something on the ballot, all they have to do is get the required signatures and the measure is placed on the ballot.
If we really want to help the people of our state to give them more power and more say, this is an opportunity.
Lauser's proposed bill would make it mandatory for initiated measures to go through Legislative Council before going to a vote in the legislature. If the legislature votes yes, the measure becomes law. If the legislature rejects the bill or it's vetoed at the governor's desk, the measure would then be placed on the ballot in the next election.
I think that Representative Lauser's bill is a significant change, and it basically strips the power of the people.
One of the reasons Lauser is looking at the change is because of the Compassionate Care Act.
If that language was more in line with our Constitution or our Century Code, that measure would be implemented now.
I spoke with one audience member who didn't want to go on camera, but he told me that if the initiated measure change goes through, he's afraid that it's going to take the power away from the people. Reporting at the Capitol, I'm Andrew Horn, West Dakota Fox.
Former U.S. Representative Rick Berg was just elected to serve as the chairman of the North Dakota Republican Party. Berg served one term in Congress after being elected in 2010 before losing a close U.S. Senate race to Heidi Heitkamp in 2012. Secretary of State Al Jaeger approved the petition format for a proposed measure dealing with transparency in elections. The petition would call for a new article in the state constitution dealing with funding transparency, conflicts of interest, and establishing an ethics commission. Supporters will need to gather nearly 27,000 valid signatures to place the issue on the November ballot. A project dubbed the Rail Yard is set to move forward in Mandan. City officials are looking at ways to revitalize West Main Street with an anchor building to draw people to the area. They want to turn the old Central Market grocery store into an event hall. It would also house the library. The plan includes possibly selling the old thrifty white building. More Mandan developments. Crying Hill is one step closer to fruition. City commissioners voted tonight to change the land south of the interstate and west of Mandan Avenue to residential lots. It means the developer, Nash Coke, is free to move forward with the plans to build homes on the 74-acre plot of land.
Consistent with our land use plan that was adopted a couple years ago. And so that's the first thing we look at, is to make sure the developer's idea fits with what the city's idea is for a particular piece of property, and this one does.
Tonight's meeting also served as a public hearing on the change. The only issue voiced were concerns over the use of heavy equipment and trucks on roads that were just paved a couple years ago. Well, up in Minot, as you can probably imagine, it's not easy to vaccinate a dangerous animal. At Roosevelt Park Zoo, caretakers use a little training to safely enter the tiger's cage.
Having the animals to accept vaccines voluntarily versus having to catch them up, it's a lot less stressful to descent and work towards it. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, but in the end, way less stressful for them and for us. They look forward to it. You know, you'll see the animals get excited when their zookeeper mom or dad comes by with their bucket, because they all know, or a golf cart, that's another factor, two of them knowing, you know, something's about to happen. They're not exactly sure, but they're hoping to get food.
Zookeepers say Krapinka, the tiger, turns 18 on Friday and is still learning new tricks. Norsk Hostfest is announcing the first 3 big names performing at this year's festival. Singer Michael Bolton, Irish dancer Daniel O'Donnell, and ventriloquist Darcy Lynn and friends will perform in the Great Hall. O'Donnell, who is a Hostfest mainstay, will entertain on Wednesday, September 26th. Bolton will take the stage Thursday, September 27th. Darcy Lynn and friends, who rose to fame as a winner on NBC's America's Got Talent, will perform Saturday, September 30th. Tickets go on sale on May 17th. Some breaking news out of Texas. We've just learned at least one person was injured in a reported explosion in South Austin. Emergency crews say the victim was a 30-year-old man. At this time, police aren't sure if the bombing is connected to a string of deadly explosions that have plagued the city all month. Today's explosion comes just hours after another detonation at a FedEx ground facility in San Antonio. Police say a package bomb went off on a conveyor belt, causing minor injuries to an employee nearby. FBI officials say this bomb is likely linked to the other deadly explosions throughout the Austin area. Tornadoes ripped through Alabama last night, raining down baseball-sized hail and tearing off roofs. This is in Jacksonville State University. Alabama Power Company is reporting roughly 15,000 customers are without power. And a suspect is dead following an hours-long standoff inside a New Jersey Panera. This is in Princeton. Police say around 10 a.m. a gunman entered the restaurant. Customers and employees were able to escape. The suspect remained holed up inside until police eventually shot him. United Airlines is suspending its pet program after the company received backlash for the number of pet deaths on board. Since 2017, 18 pets have died while flying United. That's triple the number of animal deaths compared to competing airlines. And Facebook stock tumbled 6% yesterday, which means Mark Zuckerberg is down $5 billion in one day. It all stems from the company's data mining scandal, which may have inundated users with fake news swaying the 2016 election. Speaking of losing money, the embattled Weinstein Company is filing for bankruptcy. As part of the bankruptcy agreement, employees at the company may be freed from all non-disclosure agreements. Former chairman Harvey Weinstein is accused of sexual harassment, including rape, by over 70 women. In environmental news, restaurants across the country are curbing their use of plastic straws. Statistics show over 500 million straws are tossed each day. Some fear a majority of these straws are not recycled and end up polluting oceans and landfills. NASA is releasing some new images of a photo shoot beyond our solar system. The Hubble telescope snapped these, showing star clusters and even other galaxies. NASA says some of these stars can be seen from amateur telescopes at home. While we're in space, NASA scientists say there is a small chance that the Bennu asteroid could hit Earth in 2135, but experts are already looking for ways to reroute the object. That includes nuking the asteroid or hitting it with a bulk impactor to knock it off course. From outer space to back here on Earth, Henry, we made it through the winter.
Yes, we did, but not necessarily through the winter weather, because more of that is underway for Friday.
Earlier today, a student was shot and killed after opening fire at a Maryland high school. Tonight, a 16-year-old girl is in critical condition and a 14-year-old boy is recovering from a gunshot wound. Fox News senior correspondent Adam Housley has more.
A student with a handgun shoots 2 classmates inside his Maryland high school. The suspect, identified as 17-year-old Austin Rollins, is dead after being confronted by an armed school resource officer.
This is what we train for, this is what we prepare for, and this is what we pray that we never have to do. And on this day, we realize our worst nightmare.
The school in Great Mills, Maryland was on lockdown as frightened students hid in classrooms until officers made sure there were no more threats on campus.
We send our kids to school to get an education, and then we get calls that there's shootings and people are dead in schools. When is something going to be done?
Cops and ambulances coming in and cops running towards the doors and just screaming, saying, everyone get down. It was scary because like you see parents down there just like screaming for their kids, and it's like you don't expect this because we just had a walkout just a week ago about gun violence.
Maryland Democratic Senator Ben Cardin says this latest school shooting underscores the need for universal background checks and stricter gun control. He says students across the country are leading the charge for gun reform in the wake of the Parkland, Florida school shooting.
I can tell you that Americans are listening to our students, are listening to common sense actions. I think our political system will respond.
Today, the last living northern white rhino died, leaving the species extinct. The northern white rhino were historically native to parts of northern Africa and nations like Congo, Sudan, and Chad. Well, some happy animal news. The first baby polar bear in 25 years was just born at the zoo in Scotland. The cub stayed close to mom as they ventured out of the enclosures. Visitors can now see the little one daily. Henry, for the first day of spring, it looks pretty polar around here.
Yeah, it definitely does, and we're going to be dealing with fog tonight, likely some drizzle as we start out in the morning. Otherwise, a bit on the cloudy side, but the wind remaining light with temps near 20 to start. Back in the 40s, but I will be monitoring the chance of that potential winter storm Friday, break on Saturday, then another round of precip likely Sunday.
We got some snow here. My parents live in Silver Spring, Maryland. They are expecting a foot of snow tonight.
Yes, not looking forward to that, I bet.
Yeah, happy first day of spring, I
right.
guess. We'll see you tomorrow.